Spurs up, Carolina fans. This is Phil Harris here at the Ruckin Roosters Show. And I've got a very, very special guest this time around. I believe other than Coach Roberts. Carl, you are the second most appearances on the show ever because this is your second appearance on the show. Welcome. I appreciate you being on here. Let me get through a little quick With You Weekend promo here. With You Weekend is October the 11th and 12th this year. Head over to uscrugby.net/events to check out the weekend schedule, book your hotel, and purchase tickets to the Saturday event at Savage Craft. Guys, I can't speak highly enough about With You Weekend. Make sure you're there. If you're not there, you're square for sure. Carl, you've been on the show previously, as I've talked about, with your son CJ, but we wanted to get you back on here and let's get right into it. Where are you from? I want to go over a little recap of your background.
Sure. So I'm from New Jersey initially, and when I was looking at colleges, South Carolina was high on the list. Wanted to get as far away from New Jersey as I could. So ended up down there. And sophomore year, I met a fellow in the weight room, and we worked out together for a while. And he said, "Well, do you ever think about playing rugby?" And I said, "No, I didn't really even know what it was." And so went down to practice, and the rest was history. Played down there for the next few seasons, and so really that was my formation. My formative sort of rugby experience was playing with South Carolina.
That moment about you being asked to come out and play changed your life forever, right? Like it's that moment right there that took you on a completely different path with something that you played. Now you're coaching. You've been doing that for a long time. Your son plays the sport of rugby now, so that little moment right there changed everything for you.
Yeah, the guy's name was Steve Nightingale, and I still remember it, but it did because I didn't. I'd always played football. I played other sports, but rugby is a totally different sport, and you know that as someone that's played yourself, because there's a mentality among rugby players, and it's a shared mentality, and it's hard to describe. But rugby is a game where you can beat the snot out of somebody for 80 minutes, and then you go have a beer with them, and and everything is forgotten. Your best buds, and you run into them. Pick a place, and even though they're your opponents on the field, you have a brotherhood with rugby, and that's that's a pretty special thing. You don't see that with baseball, I guess.
Right. Or really any sport. I mean, there's always a sense of brotherhood with people that play certain sports, right? But rugby is just another level in it because it's such a physical game. And you would think that these guys would have grudges against each other at the end of the game. That's just not the culture of rugby. It's all about breaking bread with each other after the game, and shaking hands and all of that fun stuff. It's such a unique sport.
And there's opportunities, right? I mean, especially as you go up through men's club, they put teams together for Saranac Lake is a big tournament up here, right? And so they'll put teams together, and they're looking for 4 or 5 guys, and you're building a team of people from 6 different teams sometimes, and you're all playing together, and you're friends, and you're living together, camping together, doing other things together. It's a great experience, and you do make lifelong friends. And I think when I got out of college, I was working. All right, I was trying to establish myself, and I moved back to New Jersey. I went out to play for Morris for a little while, and not very long. I found the club. I went to practice, played maybe 2 games, and I was just too busy. I couldn't commit. But, even that, right, I'd met those guys a handful of times over a period of a few weeks. And I'm out in a bar one night in Morristown, New Jersey, and there's a whole pile of them. And right away they're, you're just sucked right in. And
right.
They didn't know me. I mean, but they did. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, you go to, and I don't know if you've been to Europe at all, But if you
Yeah.
go to England, for example, when you
Mhm.
wear a rugby jersey in a bar, you got 30 fast friends.
That's right. Yep.
It's, people come up and, they engage you in conversation. Everybody that loves rugby loves rugby. It's like black
100%.
licorice, right?
Yeah, we're our own type of category, right? Like, rugby people gravitate to other rugby people. It's just it's a very unique sport in that way. Like, obviously it's a huge global sport, but it also kind of feels like a small community, especially within this country. Like, I've been overseas. You're talking about that with my rugby journeys. I went to Belfast earlier this year with the New England Free Jacks Independence squad, and it's really really cool to be around rugby people. But we're kind of getting away. Let's go back to, what position did you play at Carolina specifically?
Yeah, I started out playing flanker and I propped some, and and hooked. So those were
Gotcha.
really the spots I played. But most of the time I spent as a hooker.
Old
Um,
forward, just like myself. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I'm paying for it now. Now I'm like a peach, Phil. When if you bang me, I bruise, and I get
Listen,
soft. So
the arthritis is kicking in for me, and I've got a terrible right hip. So I'm right there with you, my friend. So yeah,
yeah,
we're paying
well,
for it now for sure. Any
yeah,
individual or team
sure.
accomplishments that you were proud of during your time at Carolina?
I don't know that I can, pick. I mean, scoring my first try was obviously a big accomplishment for me.
Hmm.
I had sort of like battlefield promotion into the A side because of a couple injuries, and did my job right, made my tackles. Um, you know, yeah, I just did my job.
Hmm.
I don't think that, if you look back, I don't say that I was a distinguished player.
Right.
But I was learning the game, and
Yeah.
always had a little bit of, being from New Jersey, we're generally angry people. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
of a streak in there, and so that helped
Right.
me, and that overcame some of my, shortfalls in terms of my skill level.
Yeah.
Um, you know, yeah. So I loved it. Then I played in the Rockefeller era, Philo
Oh,
and
sure.
Mark
Yeah.
and that crew of people, and there were some very skilled rugby players on that team. Yeah, it was fun to learn and watch, and understand the game from those guys for sure.
Yeah, some of those guys, some of the best to ever play for Carolina Rugby, I think it's fair to say, when we start talking about that era of Carolina Rugby. But let's talk really quickly about, what was your major, your undergraduate major at Carolina?
Yeah, I was a finance and economics major. I double
Wow.
majored. I was an overachiever, but so it was, but business. I got back, and I remember we had. I took a principles of banking class, and it just really interested me. So when I got back, I went to work in banking, and I've had a career in banking going on. I graduated in
Wow.
'87, so in 3 years it'll be 40 years. So you do the
Incredible.
math backwards, but yeah,
Wow.
it's been a good run, and it's interesting, and it's constantly changing and evolving, and so
Sure.
it's fun. I enjoy the work I do.
I mean, it sounds like Carolina set you up pretty well with that double major to, go into the workforce, and you've been very successful in that, it sounds like. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot down there. I think, but geez, Phil, you got to remember when I took, the first computer class I took, CSC 101, I think it was, we had a program on punch cards. So
Wow. Yeah.
sometime around my senior year, we got the first, PC.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Right.
So things have changed, right? There's been a world of change since the days that I roamed those halls.
100%. Yeah. Things have changed even for me. Like, I remember those huge monitors that we had, and now I'm staring at you from a big screen TV that I've converted into a monitor. It's a flat screen. So, things move quickly for sure. Technology is just ever evolving, and it's great until it isn't, right? So, let's talk about your coaching. You
Yep.
played for quite a while, obviously at Carolina, then was, I believe, in Connecticut, playing for most of the time there in New Haven. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
played for New Haven Old Black for the better part of a decade until injuries just and my wife kind of forced me out of it. But then I joined the administration. I had actually, for a couple of years, I was the president of that club. I was the treasurer.
nice.
Moved out. When I playing, I still play an old boys game even to this day. When we
Hmm.
have one, but I'm not that fast. My brain is much faster than my body is.
Sure.
But yeah, and then when I left, I joined the board, and I still serve on that board.
Nice.
And that's the fraternity of it. And then my son was young, and a friend of mine had was talking to me about flag rugby in an adjoining town. And I said, you want to try it? Yeah, Dad. So we went down there, and you know how rugby is. When the guy that ran the club was a friend, and he looked at me and he said, well, you know, did you ever think about coaching? And I said, absolutely not. And, you know, that was 14 years ago. Right. So, you know, I've been with it. I was with him through all of that, coaching, you know, youth flag all the way up through youth tackle and then into high school tackle. And yeah, so I'm on the board of that club as well. You know, that's kept me very busy, but I met a lot of people in the greater Connecticut rugby community, you know, most of the coaches, and I serve on the Connecticut Rugby Union board. I'm the treasurer, because you're the banker, so they make you the treasurer.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
And
they hear banking, they're like, oh, you're going to deal with the money.
Yeah, right. Here, give that guy the checkbook. Right.
Right, yeah.
So you know, I still am involved. Yeah, I'm involved at the state level as well. And I think, you know, the whole impetus, it's not, you know, I don't know, it's, you know, if not me, if not you, who, right? I mean, somebody's got to step up and somebody's got to keep it going. Somebody's got to do the work. You know, everybody's at different stages in their life. And I'm fortunate that I'm able to do this and help, because, you know, what it's all about really is, you know, the things we talked about, right? How much fun rugby is, the brotherhood that you have. And so if I can spark that interest in some kid, you know, that, you know, and have him have a lifelong journey, maybe like mine or not. I hope this is better, but you know, you would think that that you're giving back, you know, to something that
totally,
you know. I'm sure, Phil, you probably still talk to your friends that you played with. I mean, I have most of my closest friends. When we moved to Connecticut, I didn't know anybody. Found the club, and you know, I know those guys going on 30 years now plus. I mean, you know, been to their weddings, you know, I think I said this last time, but it's still true. You know, their second weddings, watch their kids get born, you know, the whole 9 yards. Now I'm going to their kids' weddings. So, you know, it really is, it's something that, and my wife became friends with the wives, and, you know, it's been the circle of friends that we've had for the better part of, you know, 3 decades. So, and that's all because of rugby.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the game that keeps on giving beyond your playing years, and it's always so important.
Every time I lift up that arm, I recognize that.
Right. But it's really, really important to have people that transition from players to administrators and then to coaching if they want to get into it, because there's so much more, there's so much that the game gives us, but it's so important to give back to the game as well, right? Like, especially here in the United States, where we're still building this thing up. We talk about this a lot on the Ruckin Rooster shows, that the World Cup for the men's is in 31. It's right around the corner. And for the women, in 33. So, you know, we talk to coaches, we talk to administrators, you know, we want people to continue to help this thing along as best we can. We're all a part of this movement, and we're trying to drag this thing up a mountain to get to the top. And once we're there, it's going to be awesome. But, you know, it's tough right now. We're trying to get as many people behind this thing to move this boulder up this hill. What's been your proudest moment as being a head coach?
Well, you know, there have been many. I mean, you know, there are big ones and then there are small ones, right? Small successes with kids. I think, you know, we try to focus on teaching them, you know, outside of the basic skills, but rugby IQ, because, you know, rugby is not a game that you know, we get a lot of football players, they come on, they can run hard in a straight line. They can maybe make a tackle if hopefully they rep, you know, when they make the tackle. But, you know, it's teaching those kids that, you know, hey, this would be a good time to pass the ball. This would be a good time to go down with the ball. This would be a good time to, you know, here's how you support a ruck. Here's, you know, here's where you go when you see what's, you know, you develop vision down the field to understand what's going to happen and put yourself in the best spot. So, you know, that to me is, you know, when I see kids really getting it, I love it. I mean, last 2 years ago, we won the Division II national championship. That was pretty amazing for my club. Yeah. And then this year we lost to the ultimate winner in the semifinal, which was a little disappointing, but, you know, at least we came really close to making the final. But, you know, we've had, you know, you get all levels of athletes. And so to be able to, you know, get the best out of all those kids, right, no matter their level, and have them perform and see them really enjoying the game and having fun with it. Because I think, you know, as adults, like everything, people make things more competitive. And really what you have to remember is, these kids, you're trying to make them have a great experience.
Right.
And sometimes, winning, if somebody had a great run that never scored, but somebody scored that never scored before, celebrate that even though you lost. I mean, you're trying to build, the spirit, the esprit de corps of the team. And when you see that all come together, as a coach, it's really rewarding to me. I think, that's what it's all about. There's with the NCR now, I mean, everything is, pretty well organized at the collegiate level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And more so than it's ever been. And now, last year I had 5 seniors graduate, and 4 of them went on to play. The year before I had 10 seniors graduate, 9 of them went on to play in college.
Wow.
They're still playing. I mean, so they enjoyed it, right?
Yeah.
Because if they didn't, they would have, and they're doing well. So, of course, my son, I should put this.
Oh gosh.
I'll hide that.
Yeah, please get that off the screen.
But I've had others. A guy playing up at University of Maine, another University of Hartford this year. One kid, great kid, great number 7. He 3 years he really came on, and he said, "Coach, I'm going to Dublin." I said, "Oh, you're going to school in Dublin? That's fantastic." He goes, "Yeah, but I'm playing football." I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." I said, "Well, you're gonna have to find a rugby club, Sean, because you're built for rugby, Right. But those are the things, I mean, that make me, I guess just keep doing it.
Let's
Anyway,
give a
that was
shout
a
out
long
to
answer.
your
I'm
team.
sorry.
No, you're good. I appreciate it. Listen, this is great. So it's Mid-State High School, right, in Connecticut.
Right.
Okay. So the team that you coach. It's interesting because we've been to a couple of the recruiting events there in Connecticut at Stapleton High School, I want to say. So it's interesting that like Connecticut, you would never guess, like it's a small state, right? But it's in New England, which has a great rugby heritage and rugby culture. So it's pretty cool that, Carolina and other teams really are able to establish a pipeline to bring the kids down from your area because they've got experience. At this point, well, back in my day, let's just say we were just hoping to get anybody that would want to come out and play rugby, right? Like that was the idea. Is like didn't matter if you had experience. Yeah, exactly. Didn't matter if you had experience, just anybody willing to put their body on the line to come play rugby, right? And learn the game. That's all we were happy for. But nowadays it's all about, let's get these kids in that have high school or maybe even younger than that experience so that we can better our program because those kids have more experience. They know what to do with the ball, all of that sort of stuff. Skills have been, polished prior to getting into college. So that's what it's all about nowadays. And that's why high school rugby and youth rugby are so important to these college programs nowadays. We don't have to go find, meatheads that don't know anything about the sport and try to teach them how to play, right?
Hey, I resemble that.
But that's kind of what we're going for. Is we want to get in these kids that have that high school and younger experience because
that's Staples Combine. They just posted the date for the new one.
Awesome.
I think it's coming up. But that's a great opportunity for kids to get in front of a lot of college coaches. And you've been there. That thing is well attended.
Absolutely.
Probably 175, 200 kids come down.
Yep.
And then we benefit here, and you're up in New Hampshire, so the Free Jacks has an academy team.
Oh yes.
And and I send kids. They have to make the team, right? But I send kids up there, and we've worked. They come down to Connecticut. They've done some training sessions, and they pick kids, and that's another good opportunity for kids to play, select side high level rugby.
Absolutely.
Last year my son played for the last 2 years, but his sevens coach was Wayne Vanderbank, right? I mean, Wayne was the MLR Player of the Year.
That's
and
right.
Wayne's a heck of a nice guy. I mean,
the nicest guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and he did such a great job with those boys. And, and this year they had an opportunity to go down to the Mid-Atlantic Academy Conference down in Maryland and meet, they played teams from California. San Diego had an academy team in. There were others, the Jaguares, Houston.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's some pretty high level competition. So you get, you teach these kids, kind of, urge them out of the nest, let them go. I mean, the coaches are pretty stringent. They're looking for good players.
Sure.
You make the cut, and we've had a few. They're playing some really top level talent, and by the time they're getting into college, they played some really high level rugby. And and so that's just fantastic. And I know that's happening a lot around the country. I wish there were more opportunities for, burgeoning athletes, kids that really want to play rugby to get into, something like that as well, because it raises their level, and they're getting great coaching.
Absolutely.
Better coaching than me, frankly.
Sure, but you've done your part, of course, and we appreciate all you've done for youth rugby up there down there in Connecticut, I should say. Let's talk.
And I proselytize for the Gamecocks every chance I get.
I appreciate that too.
When I meet a kid in Connecticut that is thinking about South Carolina, I chew his ear off.
Yeah,
in spite of where my son is going,
Well, I think we have to talk about that at some point, Carl, because you and CJ were on the show previously. At that time, he was a high school recruit who had visited Carolina, and he had some other schools that he was considering. And obviously, he's ended up at Kentucky. You were showing the hat a little while ago. Kentucky, by the way, in the polls right now, I believe are number one.
Right.
In the 1AA division, which is what Carolina's in as well, along with Clemson and Tennessee and stuff like that. So, I mean, he was considering Tennessee very strongly, if I recall. And ultimately, if just my personal opinion, I'm so glad to see him in blue as opposed to orange, just because I hate Tennessee so much. But I mean, what's your thoughts?
We did a lot of touring. He got in where he ended up where he needed to be.
Sure.
He liked the program and the feel. He got right into the school that he wanted to get into. So it was a great fit for him.
Good.
And it wasn't that way everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Where he got in and he was like, after, looking at the campus, looking at the, I let him pick, I know where I would have had him go if I could have directed him, but,
Sure.
It's at some point, Phil, you just have to let him go,
Right.
So, but
Right.
he's pretty happy down there. They have a great coach. They have a great program, similar to South Carolina.
Right.
Actually, we got some Tennessee kids that are playing right now that are from Connecticut as well. We got a couple of Connecticut kids playing for South Carolina as well.
Nice. Love that.
And that the other thing about the Free Jacks, I mean, he's got kids that's mainly New England, the Boston area. There are kids that are playing on teams that he's going to be competing against this season, or and it's really nice because just like you show up at Louisville and there's a guy that you went to Spain with,
Right.
it's a great. So it's been good, and he's happy and we're happy, and I wish he was in Garnet, but that's a story for a different day.
What are you gonna do, right? Like, yeah, exactly. You have to let them go. They have to make their own decisions, right? So,
and Kentucky, he's built a great program, no doubt about it, and I think that was part of the attraction for him too. Frankly, he's like 2 years in a row defending national champions. On to go down there and keep that legacy going.
Sure.
Hey, Chris.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
What can you do, Phil?
I will say this. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on air before, but Kentucky was my second choice. I think I made the right choice in going to Carolina. I don't regret that at all. I think it's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life, but Kentucky was my number two.
Well, if you're a basketball guy and my son is a basketball guy,
sure, there's no better place to go.
Unless you like women's basketball, and then it's South Carolina.
Then it's us. Exactly. Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
So you talk about. I also just got certified as a level 1 ref. So
nice.
Watch out for that because they're only letting me do youth games because the kids can't talk back to me. But
right.
Yeah. So that's another way, right? If people are listening to this and they're like, how can I give back? It's easy to sit on the sideline and be a ref.
Yes.
Go take the class. It's $100. It takes a little bit of time. You do the test online, and then go ref some games. I mean, they pay you for it, but I'm not in it for the pay. But they're always looking for refs, right? And
there's a huge need for referees all across this country. There's so many games that's going on now, which is a great success story, right? We've got more games. It gets players more experience, all that sort of stuff. But you have to have referees. You have to have them everywhere. So there's definitely a need for referees for sure.
So I'll throw that out there. If you're sitting on the fence and you're watching this, I know you have thousands of viewers. So maybe,
we'll say hundreds. How about that?
Over time.
Yeah, sure.
If 1 or 2 or 3 people, if that inspires them to go do that, I would recommend it. And if you're a coach, no better way to understand the laws of our game than to take that class. I mean,
100%.
You're going to learn nuances that you didn't know existed, and it's and it helps you be a better coach because you're
Yeah.
teaching that, you can actually police it, in your practices and, work with the kids to, get the proper form, get the proper techniques down so that they're going to avoid a penalty.
Absolutely. I would say there's no better seat in the house than being the referee, right, with the whistle. And also you get paid. They pay you money. It's that,
You do.
it's not a whole lot. It's not going to make you rich, but they put some money, they put some coins in your pocket, which is always nice. Let's transition over to Carolina, and we're going to wrap it up here with a couple of questions. You're wearing the Carolina polo. I've got mine. I will be down there at With You Weekend. I wanted to ask, are you coming to With You Weekend this year?
This year I can. I actually have a wedding that weekend.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So yeah. I thought I was done with weddings, but just when I think I'm out, they suck me back in. So but it's unfortunate, but I will make it down. I will make
Next
it down
year
for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Let's
I'd
get
love
you
to see
down there. Yeah, it'll be fun. Listen, it's some of the best times I've ever experienced is it With You Weekend. I've talked about this on this show before, but it's always nice. Not even like my generation is kind of like the lost generation of Carolina. There's not a lot of us that go to these things. But when you're around other rugby players, old and young that haven't really seen those guys in a while, it's just such a festive atmosphere. It's just so much fun. The energy that radiates from these events is just, it's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. But you're also a generous donor to Carolina Rugby. Why do you give?
For all the reasons I think I said before, right? I mean, it was pivotal in my life. And so, you never know. You drop a pebble in the water, right, and the ripples go. So I just, want to make sure that, the program is solvent and, if it helps, I don't know how much it helps, but I do what I can, if it helps get them, new goalposts when they need them, or help, get that feel that they're trying to get, or new jerseys when they need them. I mean, nobody knows better than I that it takes a lot of money to run a rugby club, and and you need all the support you can get. And if everybody did their part, even in some small way, I mean, cumulatively it adds up. And for me, it made a big difference in my life. It really shaped a lot of who I am, my perspectives on things, my ethics, my work ethic, particularly, my ability to lead teams at work and outside, just so many things that were impacted by my time spent playing rugby and learning rugby at South Carolina. It's small change to be able to give back, and I'm happy to do it.
Listen, I feel the same way. I'm also someone that donates. I wouldn't say generously, but I'm a donor for sure. And it's one of those things that I think about every time. You mentioned this kind of, but I wanted to add on to this. Like anytime that there's like a tough challenge that's in my life, I will think back. I was a 17-year-old kid just learning about the game of rugby on the internet. And I went to Charlotte Rugby Club, one of the best rugby clubs in the Southeast. These guys were grown men. And I was like, I'm going to play with them. And by God, I did. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was wild. I tested myself. I would come home and like be able to barely move around because of tackles and stuff like that. I didn't play football growing up. I found rugby and I was like, this is for me. And then I went to play with grown men as a 17-year-old, and I did it. And it's one of those things that I always think about. Like, I can do practically anything. I put my mind to that, and I stayed on the team. So yeah,
and,
it's just one of those things.
They probably accepted you with open arms too. I mean, once they know that you're genuine, you're going to come back to practice. All of a sudden, you're part of the club.
100%.
When you're part of the club, those guys would die for you.
Yes, exactly. At first, they're like, who is this kid coming up here? I was traveling 35 miles. Yeah. I was traveling 35 miles there and back as a 17-year-old. And I'm like, who the hell is this kid who found rugby on the internet and wants to play with us? That was at first. And then they're like, oh, he's not going to go away. So yeah, like we'll just embrace him, So it was great times. But yeah, I think about that quite a bit. If anything's ever in front of me where I'm like, I have to, tackle this challenge, I'll be like, easy. I did that. I can do this, so.
For sure. Perseverance.
Hell yeah. What's your impressions of Carolina Rugby? Like, you're a coach, a successful high school coach. John Roberts has taken over this program. It's been a couple years now, but what's your overall impressions of Carolina Rugby?
Well, I think he's building a good program. He's had a good couple of recruiting years. He's got some, and I watch it. I watch it on the YouTube channel. I watch his.
Sure.
My wife would tell you I watch way too much rugby. I'd watch, but I think that the team is they're burgeoning, right? I mean, they're right
Yes.
on the verge of really stringing, and they actually beat Kentucky last year in the NCR in the sevens, right? And which was kind of a surprise because it was a great matches to watch, and I was torn. I mean, I was it's a little bit of a Sophie's choice for me now.
Yeah.
But that was really good rugby, and I think the 15s is coming along as well. And like as you mentioned, they're pretty highly ranked, so they got some tests coming up. I mean, Georgia's always tough, Tennessee's always tough. And I know you guys we went down to Queens, which is a brutal place to go. I mean, that's
it's a
varsity sport, right? I mean, and they don't have football, so they support rugby, and they're giving scholarships, and the tables are tilted a little. But I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see more schools adopt it as a varsity sport because it's not an expensive sport.
Yeah.
To really, to fund. You see a lot of schools, making women's rugby a varsity sport, right? Quinnipiac, right down the street,
Sure.
One of the famous alum,
Alona Mar, yeah.
Right. I mean, she practiced with New Haven. Not when I was there, but in her time,
sure,
that was, and they had a varsity program, and you see it, and I think it's gonna, especially for the smaller schools, right? I think it'll become varsity sooner.
Yeah.
Army, Navy, of course. I think life is a varsity sport, and there are a few others. Wheeling just started a varsity women's program, and Wheeling won the 15s last year for their division.
Right.
Anyway, I think we'll see. I think Carolina is going to do well. I think they have a lot of opportunity ahead of them. I think they'll make the tournament this year without a doubt, and then we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I think the next episode we really need to get John Roberts on here to talk about the season so far and what they have ahead of them. I think that would be really, really good. But so far so good, right? We've beaten the teams that we would expect to beat. Right. Queens is definitely a huge challenge, and I think the team learned from that. It was, I believe, one of the first games of the season.
It was. You have to test yourself against teams like that for sure.
100%. You have to see where you are.
Yep. That's where you understand. So, no, it was brave of him to go up there because that's a meat grinder. Those guys are tough.
100%. Final question for you here, Carl. You've been fantastic. I appreciate your time. But I ask this every single episode to everybody that we speak to. What would you say to a high school transfer or international recruit who's considering coming to Carolina and playing rugby as a Gamecock?
I think it's a great place to land. If you want to help add to a program that's has opportunities for greatness, I think it's a good place to be. I think John Roberts, the coaching staff he's assembled there, good bunch of guys. There's good team spirit. Even with go back to my son, when we talked about where do you want to go, what are some of the things? Well, you want to go where it's a legitimate program. Yes. They have a real coach. Yep. They have, good practice facilities. They have, a funded, maybe a good donor base, right? So that the team can travel and the team can, do things that they want to be able to do. You don't want to, you want a legitimate program, right?
Yes.
That you can be part of, and that's going to be there. They're not going to get suspended. They're not, all the things that used to happen back in the day. And Carolina certainly fits that bill. All right. Yep. And if you want to play at a high level against some really tough competition, it's a good place to land for sure.
100%. Listen, we were talking about this in our board meeting. Like, we have a great foundation, the Carolina Rugby Foundation, that supports the team. Not all the teams out there can say that. They don't have these dedicated professionals that are, in the best interest of the club trying to help move this thing forward. And you're mentioning another thing. We have a professional coach. who gets paid money to be there. It's not just some random Joe Schmo that's coming in as a volunteer. And of course, we need as many volunteers as we can get all across the entire country for rugby. But John Roberts is a paid professional coach with a huge rugby resume. So that's another big thing for Carolina Rugby. It's one of those things, man, where it's just like, it's a great place. Columbia, great city. Right? The weather is fantastic. We're up here in the Northeast. I actually like this kind of weather, but I'm insane. Most people want to get away from snow and cold weather.
I never want to shovel snow again. Someday I'm going to retire and never lift the.
Listen, I can't wait until it starts snowing. That's me, but I'm off my rocker. But most people are not like me. And most people, especially in this area, they want to go somewhere warm. And Columbia is certainly hot. It's famously hot, as they say down there. So great weather, great program, great university. If you're a business student or want to be involved in business, there's no better place than Carolina in the entire country for international business. So yeah, a lot of strong things to say about Carolina.
Yeah, I think, and you can't, discount the access to Waffle House, because they're absolutely,
they're delicious. They're a national treasure. They really are. So. All right, Carl, this has been great, man. I appreciate you very much. And we'll see you along somewhere around the way there for sure. We say two words. Go ahead. Sorry.
Spurs up.
Yeah, that's it. 1, 2, 3. Spurs up.
Spurs up. Thanks,
pal. Bye.
All right, brother. See ya.